Hi there, this is Brent.
And this is Amanda.
We are the Unreliable Narrators.
Here to talk about the strangeness, the mystery, and the wonder of Gene Wolfe's prose.
What is time?
What is memory?
What is a person?
Is this reality?
Where are we?
Do we exist?
Have you ever considered that all your choices are what brought you right here to this very moment?
Episode number 40.
Breakthrough. Frontier Crossings, edited by Robert Jackson, 1987. Science Fiction Conventions Limited was the publisher, and it doesn't really have a title. It's just Breakthrough by Gene Wolfe. And it was a souvenir at the 45th World Science Fiction Convention.
Yeah, so this is an unusual piece. It's not a short story. It's one of his nonfiction bits that you scrounged up somewhere.
Well, yeah.
I say with all happiness, because otherwise I wouldn't know that it existed.
Yeah, well, one of the reoccurring comments that I see is we often cover obscure stuff. So
I think that's a good thing. Well, I don't know. I don't care if, sorry, listeners. I don't care if listeners are excited about it being obscure stuff or not. This is what I'm interested in. This is what you're interested in. And it is kind of fun to not be doing the 17th reading of a popular novel series, but
yeah,
something that's maybe a little less accessible. Like with many of the shorter works of Wolfe, we'll probably read much of the substance of it in the course of discussing it. Otherwise, how can listeners access the text in order to read it, since it's probably not widely available?
I believe it's on archive.org, and I think it's on fanac.org.
Okay. Well, hopefully they can access it that way. Although it's not a very long piece, and in the substance of our conversation, I'm pretty sure people will hear most of it. So, yeah. All right. You sent this to me with a suggestion that we talk about it, and it resonated immediately. So I'm excited to talk about this one, as opposed to other things that maybe I'm not. It starts off, it is practically the definition of sterility in both the arts and the sciences, which are in fact one thing. One of the greatest errors we have made is separating them. No longer requiring biologists to draw good pictures of the strange things in their microscopes, no longer making painters study the chemistry of their pigments or create their own colors. In our rage to compartmentalize thought, we have lost the most fruitful source of outrageous inspiration and have half humans in white coats marching around our laboratories like robots, which indeed they are, as every living half thing is. And half humans in rags stumbling through our artistic ghettos. And they are monsters too, for the same reason. Okay, grammatically, as an English teacher, I would have had a few issues with the structure of this paragraph. However, these ideas are interesting.
Yeah, right off the bat, like art and science is the same thing.
Yes, and we've divided them, and that has created sterility.
Yeah, it seems weird to me that it would even be a conversation.
Okay, tell me more about this.
Well, my assumption is that they're the same thing. And there's many other things that I would lump under there because it's all part of the human experience.
Right.
I don't particularly see like philosophy and religion and science and computer technology. It's like these are all things, aspects of the universe.
Yeah.
And we have to navigate those, and they're on different levels in the sense that you can't put a moral decision under a microscope.
Right.
But most of us, unless we're broken, like unless we're a serial killer or something, like we don't we feel the weight of moral decisions.
Right.
And likewise it's like, well, we can experiment on people, but most of us are like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable with doing tests on people.
Right. Because we have philosophical understanding of what it means to be a human being, and a philosophical understanding of what an experiment is, and philosophical understanding of the ways that, of the inappropriateness of putting one into the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but when you hear a lot of people talk, and maybe this is just because I've recently heard some younger people speaking, but there's like that, capitalism and it's like dumb artists not doing
something that would make money.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you need all of it. Like, what are you, if you just go to work and you never view a piece of art or you never read a book or you never listen to a good song, your life is going to be so devoid of any meaning. And it's like, well,
and I think it's even worse than that, because there's no way that you will not be viewing works of art, because the human impulse is so strongly to create art that there will be art. There will be art around, and you will see it, and you will hear it, and you will perceive it in whatever mode it is in. But it'll probably just be shitty art because you don't have good taste, and the culture hasn't cultivated good taste, and art is so unprofitable that it is, poorly attended to, and so the quality of art just is declining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the difference between an urban renewal project and artists moving into a bad area of town.
Yeah.
So it's like you see this a lot where it's like, oh, we're going to spend money to make this part of town better. And we have all these plans and it's backed by multiple layers of government. And,
we got some bureaucracy and paperwork going.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, on one level, yes, it looks better. Like, okay, this is a modern building and whatever, there's new trees, but
there's a uniformity to it.
Yeah, there's there's kind of a grossness that can only come out of a committee.
Yeah.
Or there's places where artists will move into, usually because they're cheap and they don't have homeowners associations.
Right. So there's nobody going to complain about the weird sculpture in the front.
Yep. Or if they want to paint on the side of a building,
right,
or if they want to, do something different with the architecture, they modify it.
Right.
And then, give it 10, 20 years, then that becomes the trendy area of town. And then all the rich people move in, and the first thing they want to do is start enforcing rules and agreements that...
Yep, and so then all of the life and creativity and beauty goes away.
Yeah, and so then it moves to another area of the town. So it's like this, you can't dissect things down so far that they...
No, yeah, we murder to dissect, right? So, Yeah, Wolfe goes on. It is the definition of sterility, as I was saying a moment ago, to assume that the algebra one is using is the best algebra, and indeed the only possible algebra. When the algebra is that of language, as it most often is, the error consists of deciding, without ever really looking into the question, that one knows what the words mean, that they actually mean it, and that they cannot ever mean anything else, all of which is seldom true. And I would go a little bit further and say is never true, but if it could mean only one thing, it couldn't functionally mean anything. So
yeah, and this one's an odd one because you think of algebra as being a type of math,
right?
But then he's part of where he's moving into is that there's a precision in language that if you are using it properly, you can introduce ambiguity or multiple layers of meaning with purpose.
Right.
And a lot of times, like whether or not a piece of art was successful, like kind of the first step is did it actually do what the author intended? And there's layers above that where it's, it's like, well, they can have meaning that the author didn't intend also, but...
We'll be getting to that soon.
Well, yeah. But then when you look at something that's usually called purple prose or when people are talking about genre, like in a despairing term, it's usually what they're meaning is that it's bad writing. And usually it uses a lot of cliches.
Right.
It'll say how you should be feeling instead of
generating that feeling.
Yes, instead of bringing you through the emotional experience. And, it's like if you read a poem that's like, you should feel sad, you should feel mad, now you feel bad. It's like, okay, well, I mean, I suppose...
Is this a spontaneous composition?
This is, and that was crap. And maybe I should have spent more than 2 seconds. But I mean, you could, I've literally heard people argue that, oh yeah, no, that's a good poem because it rhymes. And it's like, well, there's so much more to poetry than rhyming. And I literally just was telling the listener, whoa, this is how you should feel.
Right.
Where you can there's times where you can hear or see things, and it's very evocative, and it's like, well, wait, why is this painting of a grassland? Why is that invoking something in me? It's not telling me to feel nostalgic and sad and think about childhood, but just the way it's painted, it's like, how's it doing that? How are words in a story? So it's like, if you intend it, it's like a first level of success. But if you're just being kind of lazy with it and assuming that that's it's like, oh, this is the only way.
Well, it seems to me that an example of that is the current dominance of Insta poetry. I'm sorry, I'm punching so far down. It's not funny.
Wow.
But, no, but the idea that you can, by formatting something a particular way, then you are accessing this mystical category of poetry. But what you're doing is you're saying something that's literal, that's cliche, that's a self-help truism, that maybe there's some meaning in it, but there is no ambiguity, there is no complexity, and it's extremely limited and limiting.
Yeah.
Right. So one of an example I have of a bad poem, and I can't even, I feel like your poem was better than this.
Uh-oh.
She was music, but he had his ears cut off.
I don't even want to ask. Was that published?
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm not going to name the poet, but this is a poet that has published more books of quote poetry in recent years than you would imagine possible. This is one of the best-selling.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I feel very out of touch now.
Yes. Well, I mean, walk through a new bookstore and like a Barnes & Noble, and there'll be a big section, several feet long, on the shelf of this person's works. Here's another one. Sometimes having a conversation in a parked car for hours can heal you in ways you never thought possible.
It's like a fortune cookie.
Or like a text to your sister after a good conversation. It's not.
Yeah, that's very weird. I would not have thought that was. I feel old and out of touch now.
Well, it's ridiculous.
Well,
so what we're talking about here, definition of sterility, the error consists of deciding that one knows what the words mean, that they actually mean it, and that they cannot ever mean anything else. Like, this is a sterile thing.
Yeah. Well, and as you were talking about it, I was thinking, is it E. Cummings that has a leaf falling? Mm-hmm. And I think I guess if you've been in school in America of one vein or another, you've probably come across this poem.
Yes.
And I suspect that it's deceptive. Like, it seems so simple. And I think that this was a story, and I can't remember where I read it, but it's the Sultan has this guy, he wants him to paint a rooster. And the guy he's like, okay, well, not yet. And so he's paid him, and it goes on for years. And he's like, no, I'm still working on it. And finally the Sultan's like, I am going there, and I am going to get my painting of a rooster. And so he shows up and under threat, and the guy's like, okay. So very quickly, like in 5 minutes, he paints this rooster, and the Sultan's almost crying. He's like, this is beautiful. Why didn't you just do this when I asked you? And so then he opens up his back room.
Yep.
And there's all there's like various different paintings and different poses. And some of them are like zoomed in on the feet. And some of them are the feathers. And he's like, well, this is all the work I had to do.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, you saw me, and it took but a few minutes.
Right. But yeah, this is, no one knows the contents of the waste paper basket.
Yeah.
No one what is it? Lewis talks about this in Experiment in Criticism, or in one of his essays, where, a reviewer might describe something as effortless. Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds effortless, but you have no idea whether that was effortless or effortful. And the more effortless it sounds, likely the more effortful it was. There's it's not Eliot. I think it's maybe Yeats has a poem. I wish I knew this off the top of my head. Where he may as well go down on our knees and scrub the flagstones go down on our old bones and scrub the flagstones as composed poetry. Obviously, he says this much better than I'm saying it. Look up a really good poem by Yeats, and you'll find it, and you'll realize how much more eloquent he is. But but poets are called idlers because it doesn't look like effort to labor over a line, but it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, I want to continue with Wolfe here because he makes a turn here. And I think that the first time I read this, I wasn't quite sure that I was following him. And then I reread it and I was really not sure I followed him. And then I thought about it for a minute. I was like, oh, now I'm following him. So I'm a little slow.
Okay.
So he's been talking about sterility. And he says, let me give you an instance. And the reason I wasn't sure that I was following him is because this didn't seem like an instance of sterility, but it is an instance of the bifurcation of thinking. Okay. Any solemn halfwit to whom you speak will assure you, as they have often assured me, that the characters in fiction are not real. By which they seem to mean that you are not likely to meet them on the street as you do the planet Jupiter. From that, they appear to jump, actually they fall, to the conclusion that such characters are incapable of acting upon our world. It is all as though Arthur had not breathed decency and courage into millions. That paragraph is gold.
It is. And how do you even... Sorry, I'm parsing through where it's like, oh, okay, I see where you were going with what you were explaining, but then I'm also thinking about the paragraph.
Yes, sorry, too many things going on.
Well, this happens to me.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh.
Listeners, be assured this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. It very much is gold, and it fits in with some of our conversations about subcreation, like this.
Yes.
This hooks in with Leaf by Niggle.
Yes,
very well.
This is very Tolkien.
Yeah,
and this is very Lewis as well. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Lewis. I don't know what the line is, but Lewis has a line about Arthur or someone and breathing courage or giving courage or inspiring courage in human beings, like having that kind of impact.
Mm-hmm. And there's one of our characters in Bibliomen.
Mm-hmm.
Now I forget who it was. Sir. Oh shoot! I had it on the tip of my tongue. But he's reading the story, and he's one of Arthur's knights.
Yes.
And then he looks up, and it's his wife is like, well, "Why do you always got your nose in the book?" And he
yes.
So there's a bit of that there where it's like, okay, was he the character?
It was Sir Gabriel.
Sir Gabriel.
Sorry, just looked it up. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and he's, yeah.
Yeah, he's either so identified with the character in the story that he becomes him, or he's a character that's come out into our world, and it's just this wonderful, like, how does the world that isn't real, I'm using air quotes here, but the imagined world actually may be more real than our physical world.
Yeah. The realness of fictional characters. I wrote a story about this one time. This feels very much the way I live, because this is one of those things that seems so obvious to me. I don't understand how anyone could not see it. So you saying arts and sciences are the same thing, that doesn't seem shocking to you, doesn't seem particularly shocking to me. Although I've been in enough academic contexts where people talked about interdisciplinary studies like they were doing something revolutionary and interesting instead of, half-assing something that was a norm and a given. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that fictional worlds, fictional characters, fictional ideas are so real that they have as much reality as physical objects. They have a different kind of reality, but they have as much reality as physical objects, more so in some cases. And Wolfe puts this right in the middle of this. This is a short paragraph, by which they seem to mean that you are not likely to meet them on the streets as you do the planet Jupiter. Because you would never meet the planet Jupiter on the street. You see something in the sky that someone has told you is Jupiter, you might recognize it. Although, given the way we're all looking at our phones instead of at the night sky, probably not. Although maybe there's an app on your phone that'll tell you where Jupiter is, and then you can look at it that way. That would be a good use of technology. But what a hilarious juxtaposition. You don't meet Jupiter on the street because Jupiter is so far away. You can only know the things you know about it by report. You've only ever really read about Jupiter. No one's been to Jupiter. Even if you're looking at it through a telescope, you're so far removed from it. Yes, Arthur's more real than that. And so is Severian, and so is Patera Silk, and I don't know, good bird. But it is all as though Arthur had not breathed decency and courage into millions. The effect of fictional characters on the world is incalculable. And what a punchy paragraph.
Yeah, and this is something Palmer toys around with in Terra Ignota. And I'm going to assume everybody's
yes
read.
Spoilers, but get over it because it's too interesting not to talk about.
Well, yeah, because there's at one point Achilles, like the literal Achilles, not the historical Achilles, if he existed.
The character from the Iliad.
The character from the Iliad comes into our world.
Is embodied.
And is like, there's some oddities that he ends up being short because he's made out of the substance of a 10-year-old child. Yeah. But it is him, and there are other parts in there but he's also a soldier from World War I, and he's also like a toy army man. Like he's and he's also a miraculous being, a childish miraculous being's idea of these things. Yes. So he's those fictional characters as understood by an individual's mind. So a physical embodiment or a literal embodiment of a fictional character as it's experienced in the reader or the listener's mind, which is, I mean, what a concept for an author to bring into their fiction. It's a tour de force. So much respect to Ada Palmer for pulling that off. And I really do believe she fully pulls it off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he comes into the world. Achilles comes into the world. Yeah, so you get that aspect there of the poetic, and the literature is literally incarnating in the world of Terra Ignota. Yeah. And people are a little unsure of what to do with it. Right. But partly because it's very predictable, because it's a character that's in literature that they understand and is defined, and partly because that predictability is unstable because real beings are not automatons. Mm-hmm. And then also later, well, he's our point of view character, Mycroft, for a while. He seems to go through some sort of similar experience where he's transformed. Yeah, into Odysseus. So, and like aspects of the fictional character, I'm using air quotes here around fictional character, but aspects of this character in literature become incorporated or become him or become part of him in ways that it changes him. Yes. I do have a question here. It is, I think there may be a double meaning in here too, where it's like you're unlikely to meet Jupiter on the street. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Zeus and Jupiter. Okay, I was just I was thinking about Paul and Barabbas, where they thought that it was Zeus and Hermes. Yes, so it'd be Jupiter and Mercury. And that was part of their. What a great connection! I love that. Yeah, yeah. And the whole point of that story, the original story that the people are thinking when they're meeting with Paul and Barabbas is I said Barabbas, Barnabas is what I. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, I'm sorry. This thought, intrusive thoughts. This isn't a note that I had marked down, and then I was like, I often make a joke in meetings at work where it's like, give us Barabbas, which is crucify him, give us the criminal instead of Jesus.
You must be fun in work meetings.
I have been called a management nightmare. So, but so it's Paul and Barnabas, who Barnabas was his St. Paul's traveling
yes,
companion.
And Barabbas was the one that was crucified, or was supposed to be crucified, but was released instead of Jesus.
Yes. But Jupiter, so in the mythology, Jupiter, the people didn't recognize him as a god, and so they had that in the back of their mind, and they were like, "Wow, these men speak so well; they must be gods."
Yeah.
So
no, that's a great connection. The next paragraph, he talks about how you'll argue that Arthur was a historical character and he was really quote unquote real, as if that makes any difference. So I'm going to show you exactly how this thing works using my characters instead of Mallory's. You and I both know that none of mine can possibly be, air quotes, real.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so he goes on to describe his composition of the novella that turns into the Book of the New Sun. I was writing a novella that I meant to call The Feast of St. Catherine. I wanted my hero Severian to pluck a deadly blossom that he would later employ as a weapon, and it seemed to me that such a blossom would most likely be found growing in a swamp. They have always seemed the most deathly of landscapes to me. I grew up on a subtropical coast where the salt marshes are full of big spiders and poisonous snakes. So Wolfe's describing his intentions here, his authorial intentions. He's writing a novella. He wants this particular scene.
Yeah.
But Severian was in the middle of a large city, which would not normally have a swamp in it, at least not there. So I had to bring him to an artificial swamp, which I put quite naturally in a botanic garden. How, I asked myself, would, let's face it, tourists get around in an artificial swamp in such a garden? In small boats? That would surely be impractical if there were large numbers of tourists. Floating walkways of some sort then. So the logic, the inexorable logic of composition here. He has to get this blossom, and so he's forced to invent these structures.
Mm-hmm.
But Severian started to run along one. That was clearly a foolish thing to do, and I don't care for it when my characters do foolish things without unfortunate consequences. I know it's not good to come in conflict with the laws of chance. Severian fell off. Naturally, he dropped his sword, which was large and heavy. When a person holding a large, heavy object falls into water, he releases it. That, too, is a law, I suppose, of physiology. Again, he's being carried along by this inexorable logic of the situation.
Yeah.
It was valuable, so he dived to recover it, and it is a law of fiction. So now it's not just he's trying to construct something, but he's operating according to the rules of his art. Mm-hmm. That when a character goes looking for something, he cannot find the thing he is looking for, or at least he cannot find it first, since that never happens in real life. So true. Thus, when Severian stretched out his hand in the hope of feeling the hilt of Terminus Est, it met the hand of a lovely corpse who emerged from the dark waters covered with mud, but smiling just a bit to find herself the heroine of the 4-volume trilogy. Because Severian had run along that floating path, and because she had grasped his hand when he and I were expecting something else. When he and I were expecting something else.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like this.
Yes.
I like this so much. So tell me, what are your thoughts about what Wolfe is describing here? And what does it have to do with his definition of sterility in the beginning?
Well, no time to think on this. So I'm shooting from the hip.
Okay.
One is he's taking his art, but then also how things work in the real world.
Yes.
So in one ways, he's been very eloquently saying, go out and touch grass, but in much better ways. So he's like, this doesn't happen because this never happens in real life. So we can't have it happen in the story. But then he's also talking about how he's interacting with his subcreation.
Yeah.
His character that he made. So he and Severian were surprised. So he was writing with a certain intention, and he's
right.
And I think this is where people, we're coming off a WorldCon and I've heard too many of these. Where do you get your ideas questions? And it's like, okay, you literally have Dr. Palmer here at the table with us. And you're like, well, where do you get your ideas? And it's like,
from the sum total of your life experiences, including everything you've thought, read, felt, dreamed, and imagined. Like, I don't know, where do you get your ideas? Because they don't sound very interesting. Yeah,
so you almost get this sense that you can imbue a subcreation with at least a partial will, like you can give it part of your will.
Yeah. I would say, I would go further than that and say, unless you are working very hard to kill it, it will have some kind of will of its own, presumably from you as its creator, but also from, I'm sorry, this is the second time in one recording session that I've gotten all woo-woo, although hopefully people are listening to these things far enough apart that it doesn't connect too much, that there is some power, some will in the universe that when a thing is made and made well, it comes to life. And I think you actually have to actively work to kill it in order to prevent it from happening. And then you get insta-poetry.
Yes. And I think that there's an aspect there. So where I'm talking about subcreation, we're looking down, so to speak. But I think he's also making a commentary, a philosophical or theological commentary, where this is the whole problem of pain. This is the problem of free will. So if you like looking down, it's like a character that I am writing and creating, like is surprised because another character grabs his hand and she pops herself into existence. And it's like, oh, Dorcas, there you are. But then there's also if you're looking up, when you ask all these questions about why pain, why do these things happen, why do good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people, and why do people make choices to harm? Like, we're not talking just like, oops, I accidentally stepped on your foot. It's like, oh, I took a sledgehammer and mercilessly beat your feet.
Yeah.
It's like, why do these things happen? It's one's looking up and the other's looking down.
Right.
And it's at the risk of sounding too sacrilegious, like there's an aspect of like how does a character interact with their God? And where this goes with me, because you went to a talk with Cory Doctorow, and actually Cory Doctorow was interviewing V.E. Schwab.
Yes, I did.
And at the risk of putting too many cards on the table here, I actually didn't know who V.E. Schwab was.
I'm very much with you. Yeah.
But here's the thing. When I went back and looked at what she's written, I've actually picked up her works several times over the years.
Okay.
Because there's one where there's a magician that he smuggles stuff back and forth between parallel worlds. And I forget what some of the other ones. I've attempted to read her stuff, but it left me feeling very cold. Yeah. And very... It ignited nothing in me, and it connected to nothing in me.
Well, and yeah, also at the risk of oversharing, that's what I had in mind when I said, if you have to actively work to kill that. And at that talk, someone asked one of the boring questions, like, how do you write? What's your process? And Schwab described her process as she's very much a planner, outliner, and she has everything, every chapter, every beat of the story figured out before she really starts writing it. And she described herself as my characters are in a little maze that I've created, and I am the puppet master standing over them, and laughed about it.
Yeah.
And there was this appreciative laugh from the audience. I think, people are just hearing, oh, this is one of many possible creative processes. But I wrote that down in my notes and I told you about it afterwards because it was so shocking to me, that description. And I'm not making an argument here against planning versus pantsing.
No.
I'm just saying that self-image of the author as literally putting characters into a maze and puppeting them through it is such a sterile image to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that her stories left you cold and you just couldn't continue reading them, didn't enjoy them, they ignited nothing. It's like, I think that there's an active effort to kill off possibilities in order to maintain control.
Yeah. The stories left no impression that I didn't even remember that I had attempted to read her stories before.
Until you looked back.
Until I looked back and then was actually rather surprised that she was as popular of an author as she has become. But how did Cory Doctorow answer that question?
I don't remember exactly what he said, so I'm afraid of misquoting him. But it was definitely...
He's probably not going to listen to the podcast.
That's okay. No, I mean, he said essentially it was the opposite for him. That he starts to write a character and then they get entirely away from him and he has to try and keep up with them and then add things because they're what they need, what the character needs and what the story needs. And then it grows out of control but that's okay because then it's alive and I don't know if he said alive exactly, but he did say that he starts to write, they get away from him, and then he tries to keep up with them. And very much an image of like, much more like having a child. And you're like, oh, look, I have this kid and I'm going to teach it and train it in all of these ways. And then they turn into someone completely unexpected, despite the fact that you poured creative energy and effort into them. So,
yeah, what you described there jives with my memory of your recounting of it. Okay. He was talking about like it's like getting to know someone and it's like,
yes, this is a new person and you're familiarizing yourself with them or you're asking them what it is that they want and need and those are genuine inquiries.
Yeah.
Even though this is someone you made. So, I mean, this is probably somewhat overwritten for anyone who knows my own tastes in authors and the ideas of writing, but Dorothy Sayers' Mind of the Maker is very much this concept that, and she's writing from the perspective of how can we know God better, but it also is like, okay, I think that this is really the way the universe is, and the artistic experience of creating a character, wanting them to do a particular thing, finding that you can't have them do that thing in the story because the character you created would not do that, and having to navigate around that that's what free will is.
Yeah. Well, and then you just think about what Schwab described was like a demiurge.
Yeah.
It's like this evil like being. It's like I would not want that as a creature over us.
Yeah. Those characters will not be gods.
Yeah.
They don't have the power in them. Yeah. Okay, so a couple of other things about this that really struck me. I mean, I think the way you described it, touching grass.
Yeah.
I just described it as there's sterility in fiction when we keep artistic life separate from practical life. So that contact Wolfe has with practical life, and people like to talk about his engineering mind, completely legitimate thing to talk about. But the fact that he is doing things, making things, dealing with things in the material world of cause and effect informs so many aspects of his fiction, not just the extremely complicated inner workings of things.
Yeah.
This also, and this may be just because it's what I'm reading right now, Ian McGilchrist's The Master and His Emissary. He has a lot to say about the divided mind, about the two hemispheres functioning differently. And if you have the opportunity to read it, highly recommend it. It's like a 650 page book. And it's surprisingly readable, though, for being just dense with studies and research and experiments and observations about the ways that our brain functions. And he starts off by saying the popular concept of right brain versus left brain is wrong, but so is the idea that the two hemispheres aren't different. They are different, and they're more profoundly different than the popular concept originally ever proposed. But the characterization of them is false in many ways.
Okay.
And so he presents a new view of the hemispheres supported by a great deal of research and meta studies. And he basically says that the left hemisphere is dominant in our culture and dominant in most of our lives. And the left hemisphere is highly abstract and overly literal and disconnected from material reality. And the right hemisphere is far more embodied and holistic and aware of the sort of recursive complexities of existence.
Okay.
So we think of the left hemisphere as being very reasonable, and that's part of the popular conception is that the left hemisphere is extremely logical, but it's actually just very verbal. And because that's typically where the seat of language is.
Okay.
So it's highly verbal, but it's also good at what they call confabulating. So just coming up with an explanation for something, an ad hoc, retroactive explanation that's very disconnected from reality. Where the right hemisphere is much less verbal, but is so much better at perceiving the structure of an argument and also the truth of an argument. So it can perceive the validity and the truth value of an argument, where the left hemisphere is easily fooled either by structure or by truth value. Anyway, so thinking about what Wolfe has written here about the sterility being, the separation of the arts and sciences, that connected for me with what McGilchrist is arguing, that a lot of the dysfunctionality of our culture, and again, read the book. His descriptions are so good. He's a neurophysiologist who's also a psychologist and a philosopher. So
not a common combination in our culture.
No, and he's Scottish, and he lives in a house that's like the last house on a remote coast that overlooks the ocean and is almost, it's like it takes a long time to get there. And it was his dream to live there. And yeah. So that idea that there is a fundamental competition between the abstract and the embodied, that division is highly problematic. And his diagnosis of our culture is that we are privileging the abstract over the embodied. But he also says that the division itself, not a in conversation with each other, is the problem. And a culture flourishes. And he says the Greek culture did this very well. A culture flourishes when those things are in balance with one another. He's not an advocate of the right hemisphere not needing the left hemisphere, but an advocate of those two ways of seeing, ways of being in the world as equally, or as needing to be in balance and in conversation with one another. So this of Wolfe's reminded me of this, because the idea that either I write a character, invent it, and it does the things I say, or a mystical experience happens and a muse speaks through me and it's a form of automatic writing, is that way of understanding, that way of thinking being unnaturally divided from one another.
Yeah. You see it in a lot of ways. And sorry, I was partially what I was thinking about as you were saying that too, where you get into the way people want to interpret works too, like with hermeneutics, like how do I interpret things?
Right.
And you see that a lot where it's like, oh, well, it's this way, or like they get off in this free association where, because this word looked like this word,
now you're just importing meaning that isn't there. Yeah,
and just the fine line that it takes of, I don't know, whatever. We're on a Wolfe podcast, so this could just be one giant, like, look at all the meaning that I've read into all this stuff.
Yes.
Or, maybe this is an exercise in some sort of ferreting out real meaning about life and the universe. But what you said rings true in my experience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it also reminded me of, we both have read some of Alan Moore's work recently.
Yes, I finally finished Jerusalem, listeners.
Making sure that we got that on the podcast. Only took you about 1.5 years, 2 years.
Good book, though.
Good book. So I told a friend that I was reading Alan Moore. They were concerned because they had heard that Alan Moore had declared himself a witch in an interview. And, evangelical context, no traffic with the dark arts. I looked it up and, he may have said this more than once. One instance that he talked about, he said, I write words down or speak words out and things change. And that's magic. In a particular example, he talked about his writing having an impact on a South American country's fight against a dictatorship and him being, gratefully thanked by the liberated people.
Yeah.
And so he says, I'm a witch. He says, I am casting spells by telling you these things, by saying these things, by composing these words. I conjure images in your mind by my spell words. And he's bringing attention to the miraculousness of bringing something to life. And this is literally what Wolfe is describing here. Wolfe is not declaring himself a witch. I think he probably would have declared himself a wizard, not a witch. I kind of like how Moore definitely goes for the direct provocation there. But he wanted to write a story about a guy who gets into a fight with a deadly blossom, which is, it's like, oh, I have this idea of getting into a duel with a flower, which is fantastic. And then it leads to a corpse being resurrected and a character coming in that you could never have imagined.
Yeah, and not only does she show up, but she's not a minor character either. She's a rather
Well, he says
prominent.
the heroine of 4 novels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about our conversation in Bibliomen, and there is I think it was Skeeter. He's like the cartoon character. And I think I said something like I didn't care as much about this character, but I guess that's maybe I'm a distant and cold God to him. But then I was also thinking about, in The Just City by Joe Walton.
Fantastic book.
A fantastic book. I need to give a spoiler warning here.
It's been out for a long time. You should have read it by now.
Well, yeah. So there's a section where, it's Apollo, and he has come into the human world, and they've created the just city. Like they shifted out of time through the machinations of the gods, and Apollo's decided to be born as a human.
Right, he's incarnated.
Yeah, but he's still Apollo.
Apollo without his powers, specifically.
Yes, Apollo without his powers. So he will have to die. And there's so he's speaking with one of his friends, and he says, yes, I stopped walking, and he stopped too. But you know that before. What else were we talking about up on the wall, except for you not mentioning the fact that you're Apollo? So his friend's saying you're Apollo. And then he replies, what it means for you to be my Votari is that other gods can't do anything to you without my permission, he said. I know, and you can do anything you want. I have read about this. And then it kind of goes along, and then she makes a joke about how she's talking with a god, but like a Votari, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly because it's Latin.
I would say votary, but I don't know that that's correct.
Okay,
so.
Votary sounds more Latin. Votari,
okay.
But essentially, in some ways, if we're viewing this as like through the lens of theology and literature, in one aspect, like the idea of copyright is like a character becoming a Votari to the author.
Oh, yes. I like that.
Yeah. So, and it's like, it's not, so then because I serve you or we're in a relationship, another god, AKA like another human author can't shove me into a Tijuana Bible or create some fanfic that like completely rewrites who I am.
Right.
I think of Skeeter from Bibliomen, and then Apollo and because Socrates shows up, and then there's this gal that's his Apollo's friend, but there's just that
I'm sorry, this gal, Samaya, she's wonderful.
She is.
What a character.
Sorry, I'm trying. These are actions that happen later in the book, and I've already spoiled quite a bit.
Yes.
But I didn't want to. She is a wonderful character. But if you think about copyright in this context, where it's like oftentimes like the conversation around copyright is so politically charged, and unfortunately, it has so much of a particular mouse, and that mouse's money involved
In capitalism.
But there's a bit in there where it's like, well, okay, King Arthur is a collaborative effort of many people over a long period of time.
Over centuries.
But then at the same time, like, fanfic where it's like, oh, well, no, Severian and Vodalus ran off and became lovers or something. It's like, well, that's not, wait, what's going on? Like, or, oh, surprise, Alzabo was actually, it's like, oh, they autark all
This is a good argument for hell. Some things just need to be condemned. Some works need to be burned up so that they don't become fully real. But yeah, that protection, that the devotion that the creator shows his creation, and that the creation shows the creator, there's a living relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some Jane Austen fan fiction that it's like, okay, well, Elizabeth deserved the god she had. She did not deserve this petty deity messing around in her life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then kind of folding that over into Palmer, where Achilles, like what she's done with him and the copyright and Terra Ignota, but you get like I think there was a respectful, like, multiverse interpretation.
Well, and Walton with Apollo, who is a literary character.
Yeah.
Yeah. As well as a god.
Yeah. So there's kind of a lot of, it's interesting how any conversation about these things where it's like, oh, well, this is about art, but then it becomes, it's philosophy and theology too, in ways that we don't always understand.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just making all sorts of wild free association.
Yeah, well, As a top 5 Gene Wolfe podcast, we're allowed to do that.
Yeah. What did you say? Confabulation? Confabulation. That's the word that I should have had for our last episode with Little Tim.
Yes, he was confabulating. That is good. Yeah. I like that.
So you said that, and I'm like, oh, shoot. That's the word that describes
to describe how he's managing reality.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love this little piece by Wolfe because he is addressing several dimensions of things here. Just the creative process itself. This connects so strongly to conversations we've had about what it is to write, what it is to read an author's writing, what it is to understand your own creative process or someone else's. Why questions like, where do you get your ideas, or what is your process, or how do you write are essentially meaningless because if you're not prepared to be a god, then you're not prepared to be a writer. Little g god, but whatever.
Yeah.
And how all of this meshes with that sense that you will not be able to create things even in a sub-creating sense if you are not inhabiting the material universe. All of the good gods, the interesting gods, good in the sense of the interesting and generative gods, are gods who have had to be incarnated, gods who have had to walk the world, gods who have had to hang on a tree of one sort or another. These are the interesting gods, and the ones that show us a way forward as people. You don't necessarily have to hang on a tree for, I don't know if it's 9 or 7 days and nights as Odin did, but you do have to touch grass. You do have to encounter the hardness of the world in some way. You cannot live in the abstraction and be prepared to handle the materials of creativity.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the poet Taylor Mawley. He's a more of a poetry slam and spoken word poetry guy.
Okay. I don't think I am.
He's got some great poems. He was a teacher, and so he has a few poems on what teaching is like. And there's a really great one that I used to show at the beginning of my composition classes called The Impotence of Proofreading. And it's fantastic. Look it up. He performs it very well. But he got an audience question one time, and this got recorded and uploaded to YouTube many years ago, where they asked him how he composed his poems. And he said, in the top floor of my treehouse, in the nude, in a leather-bound notebook with a fountain pen. No, I sit down at my computer like you do. And it was a really funny moment because clearly he's gotten that question before, and clearly he's just very quick on his feet. He thought up a clever answer. But that obsession with the image of the thing and not the reality of a thing, that disconnection between the what it is to live in the world and what it is to do a thing and what it is to fantasize about a thing or absorb an impression of a thing or be captured by the abstraction of a thing instead of the reality.
Yeah.
And if our biologists had to draw, they would have a better sense of space and dimension and proportionality. And if our artists had to mix paints, they might paint more interesting pictures with subtler shades of color. And if I was going to say something about if our bureaucrats had to, and then I was just like, well, if our bureaucrats could just disappear. But anyway, yeah.
Bureaucrats are needed. Somebody's got to buy the art.
Yes. We couldn't have a society structured in such a way that was unnecessary, but whatever. All of my anarchism over here. So.
Yeah. I like these conversations because it's one thing just to talk. It's like, oh, I Google searched and look, it's the snowflake method of writing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't make that up. That's
that is a thing?
That is a thing, yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
After I said that, I was like, oh, it makes it sound like a snowflake isn't somebody who can't handle the heat.
Right.
But there's snowflake, and then there's there's different, here's the seven beats that every short story has to hit. And I forget which author said this. Somebody asked him, how does he write? And it's I sit down and bleed on the paper.
Right.
And I don't know, somebody can look that up, I guess. But but it's like that, in terms of it is a lot of effort, and it is you have to be aware of the material world and the non-material world for any of it to make sense.
No, I mean, my writing methodology is to be caught in a swirl of anguish for months and try to read and not be able to read and then half remember things and then read some more and then go for a walk and think about things and then try to write something and have it be just miserable and awful and artificial and just horrible, half-formed, crippled little worlds or ideas. And then go back and then read things and then think and then well, maybe if I get a new notebook, that'll help. And then I get a new notebook and that doesn't help. And you know what? No, go back to Scrivener. It's been faithful to you. And then create a new document. And then how do I have 47 different files in Scrivener for things that I've written 4 words on some of them or 2 sentences on others of them. And I had, this is a grand idea for a fantasy epic. And no, literally I got 3 sentences into it and was like, no, this sucks. And then an idea on a Saturday morning, and I walk to the coffee shop and I sit down and I really don't even want to go order coffee because I know so surely that what I'm starting, but I'm also so nervous because I've been so sure 16 times in the last 3 months and nothing's come of it. And then this time it's no, that I have sat and in 2.5 hours composed an entire story and closed it, walked away, went back to edit it, maybe tweaked it a little bit. And then it may not be great, but I feel good about it. And I still like it. And I still feel like it works as a story. And I don't know how much of the 3 months of anguish and false starts and reading and crying and new notebook buying and sitting in parks. And I don't know how much of that was part of the process and how much of it wasn't.
Yeah.
So
Sultan with the painter, with the rooster.
Yep. And he didn't know which one of those attempts was the one that helped him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is all fine, except for the poor people that have to put up with me as I go through all of this. And by the poor people that have to put up with me, I mean, Brent over here, who's, we podcast together. We also write together pretty often and watch the anguish from across the table. So,
well, it's all part of the process. So
Yeah.
how do you even begin to judge or put a price on any of that?
No, you just got to live, right? Like I'm going to get to the end of my life sooner or later, and this will have been it, the angst and anguish and the creativity too. So,
well, I don't know if I have anything else to say on.
I've just talked about dying, so I think it's probably time to be done.
Oh, okay. Well,
until next time, the Unreliable Narrators are Amanda Patchen and Brent Towle. And as Gene Wolfe said, she is in the past we never knew and the future we will not see. Put out more sail, Captain, for the universe is leaving us behind.